Many years ago, my teacher's teacher, a forest master in Thailand called Ajahn Chah, he had a supporter helping him out with all kind of things. Whether it was some administration work, he was always helping and willing and kind, wanting to help and serve. He also brought food for his monks and himself. And also when Ajahn Chah needed to go out and maybe go teaching or, I don't know, meeting with the government or doing a funeral, he was always willing to be the driver. So he was a really helpful resource for Ajahn Chah. And he has been a supporter of Ajahn Chah for a long time. But every now and then, he came up to Ajahn Chah and said, you're a very senior monastic now. You've been training for so many years. You must be fully developed and fully enlightened. So please, can you just look into the future and see what is going to happen to me? Can you please just read my hand, read my palm, and see what was going to happen? And of course, Ajahn Chah said, no, that's nothing we're supposed to do. And that's actually true. According to this ancient text, this code of conduct which the monastic have, we're not supposed to do palm reading or astrology or numerology and all those kind of services. We're not supposed to do that. So Ajahn Chah was kindly saying no. But every now and again, he came up to Ajahn Chah, please, can you just once, just for me, can you just read my future and tell me what's going to happen? And Ajahn Chah was trying to be patient and be kind and said, no, it's not supposed to be done. But he kept on doing that. And after a while, Ajahn Chah realized that, okay, he's not going to give up. So in the end, Ajahn Chah, he thought, okay, let's give it a try. So next time, this supporter came up to him and asked, can you please read my hand and look into the future and tell me what was going to happen? Because in reality, that supporter, he had some, I don't know, secondary motivation for all his good actions, all his kindness. He was trying to create a lot of good karma and get a paycheck from the lottery. And he just wanted to know when he was going to win the lottery and become rich, because he's done so much good karma. So in the end, Ajahn Chah, he gave in. And he said, okay, just come up here. Give me your hand. So he came up and just put his hand in Ajahn Chah's hand. And Ajahn Chah started with his finger, like, okay, well, that's interesting. Oh, look at that lifeline over there. That's interesting. And that's your heart line there. Yeah. Wow, this is promising. And he just sat there looking at his arm and pointing with his finger and making all kind of funny noises. And this poor Thai supporter, he got more and more excited. They're like, oh, what's going to happen to me? Am I going to be rich, etc., etc. And after a while, Ajahn Chah said, okay, now you can take your hand back. Now I've read your hand. I know what is going to happen to you in the future. And remember, Ajahn Chah said, I'm now a senior monastic. I'm a really master. I've had all the best masters as my teacher in my generation. I have done really well and I'm really wise. So what I've seen now is actually true. Really, really true. And this Thai supporter said, yes. What did you see? What is going to happen to me? And then Ajahn Chah said, okay, please again, I know what I'm talking about and what I'm saying, that is going to happen. And I've seen that your future is uncertain. So Ajahn Chah was just trying to give him a teaching. He was just playing along with this palm reading business and just making up some stupid things about reading his hand. And he actually wanted to teach him some really good teachings of the Buddha. And I really like this translation of uncertainty, which is another translation of this word impermanence, coming from this Pali word anicca. And uncertain is another translation of that word. And I will come back to that later on. But this supporter, he was actually looking for happiness. And his way of happiness was to get lots of money. Then he can buy a big house and have a nice car and lots of servants, and his life will be easy. And he actually came to the right place for getting or finding happiness. Because in the teachings of the Buddha, there is like an end goal. We're doing this for a purpose. And the end goal of what we are doing here is what the Buddha called for nirvana, which often is translated as the highest happiness. It's an absolute highest state of happiness available for a human being. And it is something which we can develop now, and something we can do in this lifetime. Maybe we need more than one lifetime, but it's supposed to happen. It's nothing we are kind of just supposed to believe in, and then something is going to happen in the next life. It's something we're supposed to strive for, in a wise way, strive for, and develop. So there is this stage of happiness for us. It's available. The problem is that when we sit down and we start looking at our mind and looking for this happiness, it's not that much happiness to be found. And what we find is something like this. I know some of you have seen this before, if you have been to one of my weekend retreats this year. They were done a survey a few years ago with a lot of people, 1.4 million people. And we just asked one question. It was asked, I smiled and laughed a lot yesterday. And then, yes, no. And in addition, they collected how old they were. And out of that, they got a graph. And the horizontal axis here is age. And then the vertical axis is basically how many percent who said yes. And then if you look at, you see the development here. We start up pretty happy. When we're young, I don't know, when we're 18 and 15, etc., we're pretty high up there. We're laughing and smiling and enjoying ourselves quite a lot. But then you see what's happening as we grow older. And I think that there is this was either in Stavanger last weekend or the weekend before in Arendal. Somebody pointed at this little bump up when around 60. And somebody said that that's probably because this early retirement system in Norway. Then you can stop working, you get all this money into your bank account, and then you're happy again. But unfortunately, it just continues going downhill. All the way down to 80. And then something remarkable happens. Suddenly it goes up again. So when we get old, then we'll get really happy. But there's one problem. The life expectancy for males in Norway is 80 years old. For the women, at least in Norway, and probably more or less the same in Northern Europe, etc., it's like 84 years old. So you get a little bit of this up, a little bit more happiness when you get really, really to the end of our life cycle. I kind of have this idea, this is pretty close to reality, that when we grow older, And the older we get, it's getting more and more difficult. We're picking up more and more responsibilities and families and kids and more kind of responsibilities at work. And also the body is slowly falling apart. It's not that agile and strong as when we're younger. And the result is that, well, life isn't all that cool anymore. And then the Buddha rocks up and said, well, there is actually a reason for this, I don't know, this dissatisfaction we have in life. Maybe it's not that visible. Maybe you don't see it so clearly when we're young. Everything is kind of shining bright in our lives. But according to the Buddha, and also psychology today, there is this idea of what the Buddha called for kilesas, which has a lot of various translation into English. It can be like defilements in our mind. I like to use the word tendencies. Like we have a tendency to something. And these defilements or these tendencies we have, according to Buddha, is that we have in us negativity and like hate and anger. That's something we have inside of us. We also have craving, wanting, willing things. And there's this delusion. There's this basically not understanding fully yet our own nature and how we are, how we can be happy and how we can avoid suffering in life. And that is like an underlying problem in our life. And that is what makes the biggest problems for us life, all the biggest discontent. Whether it's like just a little bit of discontent when younger and then much more when we're older, the same underlying reason are there. And then the Buddha rocks up and says, okay, but there is a way out of this. And that is the Eightfold Path. And these 4 elements, so these 4 points, that there is happiness. There is stages of mind which is just beautiful and permanently beautiful. And according to the Buddha, there is also a truth in regards to the reason for this. And that is actually the Four Noble Truths. So then, what was it the Buddha realized? And I'm just going to read out a very short text here in the very end. I recall when my father, the Sakin, was occupied, while I was sitting in the cool shade of a rose apple tree, quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states, and totally free from the 5 senses. Free from unwholesome states, like the hindrances, I entered and abided in the first jhana, like the first deep type of meditation, wherein the mind moves onto the object and holds onto it, and the object being the joy and pleasure caused by being totally free from the 5 senses. Could that be the path to enlightenment? And then following on that memory came the realization that is indeed the path to enlightenment. I thought, why am I afraid of that pleasure that has nothing to do with sensual pleasure and unwholesome states? And I thought, I am not afraid of that pleasure since it has nothing to do with sensual pleasure and unwholesome states. That was what the Buddha realized. That could this joy and pleasure in the mind, could that be the path to enlightenment? And he said yes. Basically, he's saying that joy, happiness, mental pleasure is the key for your deeper states and for your awakening. And it's nothing we are supposed to be afraid of. Joy and happiness is really important in our practice. This is called the bliss of renunciation, like the bliss of deep meditation. the bliss of seclusion, the bliss of peace, the bliss of enlightenment. And I say of this pleasure that it should be pursued, that it should be developed, that it should be cultivated, and it should not be feared. That is right from the Buddha. And I don't have it here as text, but I also remember reading one of the texts of the Buddha. The Buddha he lived in this, I don't know, this monastery or this temple place outside the capital of the state he was living in. It was given to him by the king or the prince, I think. And there he lived most of his life, and he had all his monastics living there, or many of them at least. And the funny thing was that the king of the state, he very often came out there. He came to visit that place. Again and again he came there. And once the Buddha just asked him, so why are you here? Like, in the city you have your palace. And there you have musicians, you have your harem, you have all the food you ever wanted. And it's comfort, and you have your sofa and all your cushions, and everything is comfortable. Why are you coming out here into this, I don't know, this rough jungle with all the insects and all the creepy crawlings and much, much lower standards for your body and for your senses? And he said that, well, I'm coming out here because out here I find people who's actually smiling, and they're obviously happy. And I don't find that in my palace. So he came out in the forest because that is where he found people and a culture which was authentically happy. And again, this point at this culture the Buddha was trying to create. And what was important? Joy, happiness, mental pleasure was key. It was really important. And that was what the monastics was developing. So they even were perceived as happy. And they did that because they needed it for their training. And the last text I'm just going to read out here, just to put this into perspective. This is a text from the Anguttara Nikaya, and I will just read it out. Again, highlighting this idea of the role of joy, happiness in your practice. Friends, or meditators, when one is virtuous, one does not need to will, let me be free from regret. It is natural that one who is virtuous becomes free from regret. When one is free from regret, one does not need to will, let me be happy. It is natural that one who is free from regret becomes happy. When one is happy, one does not need to will, let me be joyful. Like a stronger type of happiness. Buddha called it for piti. It is natural that one who is happy becomes joyful. When one is joyful, one does not need to will, let me be tranquil. Like a mental and also a bodily tranquility. It is natural that one who is joyful becomes tranquil. When one is tranquil, one does not need to will, let me feel mental pleasure. Sukha. It is natural that one who is tranquil experiences mental pleasure. When one experiences mental pleasure, one does not need to will, let me enter jhana. this deep state of meditation. It is natural that one who experiences mental pleasure enters deep meditation, jhana. It's natural. It's not willing. And when one has experienced jhana, deep meditation, one does not need to will, let me see things as they truly are. It is natural that one who experiences jhana, deep meditation, see things as they truly are. And this last part is about developing wisdom. And that's the teaching of the Buddha. Starting with virtue, developing this inner kind of, first level of happiness because you're a virtuous person. And you're deepening in it, in meditation. And you get this piti and this sukha, this pleasure, this joy, this rapture arising from stillness. And just go deepen and deepen, and it takes you into deep meditation. And when you're able to do that, that's the cause for you to develop wisdom. So basically, what the Buddha is saying is that if we are virtuous, it will create some kind of happiness. And then we meditate, which creates even stronger happiness. But it's a temporary happiness. It's something just lasts while you're meditating, a little while afterwards. It's not a lasting happiness. But from that happiness, you develop wisdom. And that wisdom creates a lasting happiness and freedom in your mind. So basically, you need joy. You need like a short-term joy to create long-term joy. So it's really important to have that focus in our practice. So then the question is, when you meditate, what's the point of having joy? What do you think? What's the reason why the Buddha says, you have to develop joy? Yeah. Yeah.
Continue to practice. Motivating.
Yeah, I'm getting there. Motivating. What do you say?
Yeah, you're staying longer.
Yeah.
You want to meditate. And
Yeah, it's true.
you're not forcing yourself to.
Correct. Yeah, well done. I remember I asked this, the first week in the retreat I had in 2024 in Oslo. I asked this question, and at that time I came up with this comparison. I said that all of you, when you're home, there's no problem for you to sit and watch a movie. Your favorite movie for 3 hours. No problem. You sit down, you press play on Netflix, and you just completely into that movie without even blinking, because you really enjoy that movie. Simply because you enjoy it. And the same thing works for meditation. And when we are supposed to create stillness and get a break from all our thinking and all our fantasies and all our difficult emotions, if we can be happy inside, it creates like an enjoyment inside. We really enjoy what we're doing. And then we can sit for a long time, simply because it's fun. And when we can sit for a long time, the mind has plenty of time to calm down and find peace and go in. I remember my second retreat I did in Norway. It was again out north of Oslo in the forest there. And there was a teacher coming from New Zealand. And in that retreat, I really got into walking meditation. And I don't know, 3, 4, 5 days into this retreat, I was outdoor doing walking meditation on an outdoor football field close by. And around 12 o'clock, the bell rang, saying, okay, now it's lunch. Please come for lunch. And it was a pretty, restrained retreat. We hardly had breakfast. We had a good lunch. And the evening was just some tea and maybe a little bit of chocolate. So it was really like stern and, I don't know, tough. So this one meal a day, the bell rang, and I remember I was walking meditation. I stopped and just looked at this building. Okay, that's lunch. And I'm like, nah, I don't want to eat lunch. Because at that time I had meditation going, which was so pleasurable, so enjoyable, that I actually preferred to continue meditating instead of going and eat like a nice only meal a day. And that is the kind of pleasure and happiness which keeps you meditating for a long, 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 long time. It's really, Ajahn Brahm likes to say, it's like the glue. It's like glue you have on your bum. So when you sit down and you meditate, just sit there for a long, long, long time. So how do we develop this joy? How can we come to this state where you just really enjoy sitting there, meditating for a long, long, long time? And I'm trying to do the teaching today like a bit basic, because we're in the beginning of the retreat and focusing on what's really important in the beginning to get your mind going, to start this calming of the mind, to move towards silence, and from that silence this joy and this pleasure will arise. And basically it's simple. It's the Eightfold Path. The second factor is just intention. If we can have on this retreat the intention of being kind, if you can be kind to yourself, and to the extent it's necessary, just be kind to everybody else here. It really brightens up your mind a little bit. And of course not harming people, not harming anybody, not harming your body, just caring, the opposite. And just learning to let go, not get upset when things doesn't go your way. That's like really good intentions, the second factor. And the third and the fourth and the fifth factor is what we call for ethics. And basically that's what we do with our mouth when we're talking, our body, what we do, that we don't harm anybody. But we do with the body, speech and mind what is helpful and positive to everybody else. Have that in the back of your mind. It's not something you cannot deliberately do on a retreat, but just have that in the back of your mind. Have that foundation there in your mind. Don't harm with what you're saying. Don't harm with your body, but help and care instead of protect. And then when it's getting interesting, it's when we come to the sixth factor, which is like effort. And that's where we can start to put in. There's something we can do during this retreat. And then the seventh factor, which is mindfulness. And those two together, that mindfulness and basically trying to be in the present moment, that mindfulness of the present moment and your effort, and then this uncertainty. That's those three things I wish to highlight. When we look at the present moment, does the past exist? And I was just shaking my head. No, it doesn't exist, really. And does the future exist? No, not really. But the present, it does exist. We are here now. There's like an existence. When we talk about the past, in reality, what we do is to use our present moment and we remember something from the past which have happened, or maybe we think have happened, and we drag that into the present moment. And the same thing, we sit in the present moment and we try to fantasize on what might happen in the future. And we sit in the present moment thinking about something which maybe is going to happen, even though we have zero control of the future. And the biggest point here is that we have this tendency the Buddha talked about these defilements we have. And in psychology, they call this for the negativity bias, which is like a light version of what the Buddha was teaching, but pointing at just the same thing. That we have this tendency in us to be negative. So when we sit and we pick up things from the past, we tend to pick up what's negative. All the bad stuff which have happened. And in that way, we're picking up memories and we're actually creating ourselves. We're starting up negative emotions. We get angry. We get pissed off. We get sad. Maybe depressed. Something have happened by somebody else, but then we sit and drag it into our present moment. Again and again and again, because we have this tendency. And we forget to drag in all the beautiful things which have happened to your life. Again and again. And the same thing, we sit and we fantasize about the future. And then we look at the future through these lenses of negativity. And we drag into our mind anxiety and fear, which also are mental stage which is, I don't know, like a burden for us. We don't want that in meditation, when we want to develop. So if we can be in the present moment and not filling up the present moment with negativity from the past and negativity about theoretical future, we're actually quite free. If we can stay here 100%, and we can be so into an activity that we don't sit there thinking about all the negativity in the past and the future. And again, if it's fun, if you really enjoy what you're doing, that's when you can get really go into an activity and you just stay there. And as long as you do that, you are, for a little while, for I don't know, half an hour or 50 minutes or something, you're free from your own creation of negativity. And it can be anything. It can be just walking, going for a walk, and being with your body. Just feeling how it is to walk. I know Ajahn Brahm, this is in Australia, where it's warm and nice. He's always recommending people to go out and go barefoot, because then the touch of your feet is much stronger. It takes you into the body, make you aware of walking, and give you a little bit of freedom from your own negativity and your own negativity creation. I see people here knitting. Brilliant. If you really can be there knitting. My mother is like a mega knitter. She can sit for a long time just in this peaceful little bubble, free from this creation of negativity. It can be reading a book, if you really find it inspiring. Last time, I think that was in October, or maybe it was in May, I don't remember. On this retreat, they developed a new type of present moment awareness exercise. They're starting to use jigsaw puzzles. I think there were like 10 groups of people just sitting there, and I don't know, how do you say that? You make this picture of all these small bits and pieces. And there was completely, nobody was talking. A lot of people sitting on different tables, and I was sitting in mindful, okay, no, not there, blah, blah, blah. They're completely in that process. And it is a type of meditation, and it is a type of freedom from what your mind might be doing if you didn't do that. If you just let your mind just waffle around and just move around and do whatever you wanted, and all your tendencies can kind of run your mind. It is a type of meditation. And I don't know, what else can we do?
Yeah, I'm thinking when you're going for a walk, you really observe things around you.
Yeah.
without flower.
Mm.
Or feel the wind and just feel the difference
Yeah.
in temperature.
Yes.
And that's really, really nice when
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
go for walks.
Yeah. That's actually really good. It's also something Ajahn Brahm is recommending, is to look for beauty. Just go around and look for beauty instead of looking for negativity and fault finding and all the crap. Because we have plenty of that around us. See where you can find the beauty in the nature and the beauty in the behavior of other people. So please just be aware of that. When we meditate, we can let go of everything. We can sit for a while, you can just be there and be really develop your mindfulness and your awareness, your consciousness can grow and get stronger and stronger. But in between all those meditations, try to fill up that time span with something which takes you into the present moment. There was this brilliant example from Thailand. I don't know who this was, what the teacher. There was a monastic in Thailand. I heard this story. There was this senior monastic in his temple, and a lady came visiting with his little boy. And this old monk looked at him like, yeah, maybe he has some good conditions for meditation. So he asked this little boy, do you want to try to meditate? And this boy said, yeah, I want to try to meditate. Yeah. So he said, okay, come up here and sit with me. Just sit here close by, and I can teach you how to meditate. And he came up and sat down, and then the monk was supposed to give him some instructions. And the monk just asked this little boy, what's your favorite fruit? Is it like apple, orange, mango, papaya? And I don't remember what fruit. Yeah, maybe he liked mango. And then this teacher, he just said, okay, just sit here and think about and visualize a mango. And just do that. Because this monastic, this teacher, he knew that if this boy found this fruit as something positive, something uplifting, something pleasurable, that will start some kind of pleasure and happiness and inspiration and joy in him, which will deepen when he calms down. That is a really wise master. He knows really well how important it is to do something which is uplifting, fun, inspiring, joyful. That's the thing which is carrying our meditation forward, deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And then in addition to that, if you really try to be here and now and do something in between meditation, if you do something which is take you into now, still there will be thoughts coming up. And just remember these basic teachings of the Buddha about the sixth factor of this effort. Try as much as you can this week to be restrained. We're trying to recommend you to turn off the mobile phone and just stay here and don't go out into the world. Just stay here, stay in your room, go for a walk, and stay within a place which has a restraint to it, so you minimize the sensory input to your mind. It really helps. So the more you can just live a really simple life and just enjoy being here and look for beauty, it really helps to restrain yourself. And if you still have a lot of, well, you will, I know, still there'll be thinking coming up and there still will be negative mind states. Try to use two of the most helpful, skillful means. And one of that is called for substitution, and the other one is called for diversion. So when you see your mind and something is going on in your mind, go in there and deliberately try to substitute what's going in your mind with something opposite. You learn to be aware of what's going in your mind, and when you see that, okay, here we start this negative process again, as soon as you see that, go in deliberately and maybe do the opposite. So if it's negativity and hate, start to do metta, loving kindness. Really do it. Or use diversion, which is basically just looking away and doing something else. It's like your train of thought is going this direction, and you see that, okay, and I don't want to go down this path. It's just, okay, I switch around and I start to go that direction. Just start to do something different. Go for a walk. Go do some yoga. Pick up a book. Listen to some teachings. Instead of just allowing that train of thought just to continue and continue and continue and continue. It will save you so much hassle of your mind. I have to always say this. This is in the context of meditation. What we're teaching here is to learn to let go. But it isn't everything you're supposed to let go of. There is this word called spiritual bypassing. You're not supposed to do that. And also, you're not supposed to suppress things. It's really important. But it's also really important to be able to meditate and uplift your mind and learn to make your mind stronger. So you can go into whatever, I don't know, emotions and suffering and storms you have in your mind with strength and clarity. And that's what we're doing here. We're learning to empower our mind temporarily so we get stronger to handle our life. And then the last point there is to develop. Deliberately create beautiful mental states in your mind. And Venabu Chanda is going to talk about that tomorrow. For example, we're doing metta meditation. In general, just also when you're outside your meditation, see if you can develop a lot of kindness. A lot of loving kindness. Metta. More gratitude. More remembering all the good parts of yourself. All of those things are very uplifting. And if you do those things, if you really try to be as much as you can in the present moment, so you can be free from those tendencies we have. And if you can restrain yourself, not go out in the world, just stay here, stay with a beautiful nature. And if you start up something negative in your mind, go another direction, do something else. And develop lots of good qualities, a lot of metta, a lot of kindness, a lot of love. That will create stillness in your mind, peace, clarity. And from that peace and clarity, there are mental joy arising. And it just gets stronger and stronger and stronger and more delightful. That's my recommendation. The beginning of a retreat.